Our story begins with our hero Kyle Jr., like Indiana Jones, trying to find relics in an old tomb. He's going down this long hallway and there's some rocks on the ground that kind of get in his way. Kicks at them, and it causes an avalanche of rocks and dirt to fall from the ceiling, almost crushing Kyle, who barely manages to dodge out of the way. He comes to a stop against this wall and turns around to see a huge boulder rolling slowly towards him. Kyle jumps over it, grabs onto a rope and swings himself up to a ledge. But as he climbs up, he slips and slides down the wall, only to find himself hanging by that same rope. He pulls himself up and makes his way along another narrow ledge. The floor beneath him gives way and he narrowly avoids plummeting to his death. But now he finds himself surrounded by hundreds of sharp rakes. Kyle starts to panic and struggles to free himself. But no matter what he does, he just ends up stabbing himself more and more. And after a few seconds of intense pain, he finally wriggles himself free and lands face first on the ground. Panting heavily, he mutters to himself, "I hate rakes." As soon as those words leave his mouth, the ground beneath him gives way, and he plummets into the depths. Luckily, he manages to grab onto a vine which slows his descent and eventually brings him to a stop. Gazing around, he finds himself inside a dark and dank chamber filled with hundreds of bats that squawk loudly as they fly around him. Spotting a torch on the wall, he walks over and lights it, revealing an inscription above the fireplace, which reads, "Beware the floor may bend, but the spirit will ascend." After studying the room for a moment, Kyle decides that the best plan of action is to simply walk straight ahead, and he begins to make his way into the next section of the tomb. As he steps forward, the ground beneath him collapses, causing him to fall through. Luckily, he lands in a pile of hay and quickly takes off all the hay to reveal a lever. He pulls it, and the entrance behind him begins to collapse, but luckily he had made it through just in time. As he steps forward again, the ground beneath him once more collapses, and he falls through, landing in a pit of spikes. Realizing there's nothing else to do, Kyle pulls the lever in this room, and the spikes retract. Ow. But just as he steps onto solid ground, the floor collapses once more, and he falls through, landing on top of a lever. Kyle pulls it, and the walls begin to move apart, revealing a secret passageway. He quickly makes his way through and finds himself in a vast chamber filled with gold coins and jewels. There's also a large golden sarcophagus in the center of the room, but it's empty. Gazing around, Kyle notices a series of paintings on the walls, depicting a different trap that could be triggered throughout the tomb. One showed a pit of spikes, another a collapsing floor, and a third showed the rake monster. But there was one painting missing, the one that would show him how to reach the exit. After a moment's thought, Kyle realizes that the solution is to simply retrace his steps and avoid all the traps he had already fallen into. So he makes his way back the way he came, narrowly avoiding all the deadly pitfalls along the way. Just as he reaches the exit, however, the rake monster suddenly appears and lunges for him. It swipes at Kyle, who ducks under its attack and stabs it in the eye with his whip. The rake shrieks and momentarily retreats, allowing Kyle to flee and escape the tomb. Now that he's finally free, Kyle takes a moment to catch his breath and admires the beautiful view before him. Suddenly, he spots something glittering in the grass and walks over to investigate. It's a small golden box with a keyhole in the center. Remembering the paintings he had seen earlier, Kyle realizes that this must be the key to opening the final sarcophagus. He opens the box and removes a small golden key. Then he turns and heads back towards the tomb, eager to claim his prize. Upon entering, he sees that the last sarcophagus is made of pure gold and adorned with intricate carvings. It's clear that whoever is buried here was an important person. Inserting the key, he turns it and the lid slowly begins to rise, revealing a mummified man in a golden burial suit. Kyle approaches cautiously and reaches out to touch the mummy, but as soon as he does, the room begins to shake violently. The shaking gets more and more intense until suddenly the entire tomb begins to collapse. Kyle panics and runs for the exit, narrowly dodging falling rocks and debris.
Ow!
He bursts through the opening and collapses to his knees, gasping for breath. Looking back, he watches as the entire tomb crumbles into dust, revealing a giant golden skull beneath. Suddenly, Kyle feels a sharp pain in his hand and looks down to see that the ring he had grabbed from the sarcophagus is glowing brightly. As the glow intensifies, Kyle realizes that the ring is actually a powerful relic. that can control time and space itself. At that moment, a German soldier approaches Kyle and demands that he give the ring to him. Kyle refuses, and a fight ensues. The two struggle over the ring as the German soldier tries to pin Kyle down. But Kyle manages to wriggle free and sends a rock flying towards the soldier, knocking him unconscious. He stands over the fallen soldier and mutters, "You should have picked on someone your own size, buddy." Before grabbing the ring and fleeing into the jungle, Kyle sprints through the thick underbrush, the sound of the German soldier's heavy footsteps pounding behind him. He can hear the man getting closer and closer. So he quickly hides behind a large tree, hoping his pursuer will pass by without noticing him. But as the sound of footsteps draws ever nearer, Kyle knows that he won't be able to hide forever. So he waits until the last possible second and then darts out from behind the tree and into the path of the pursuing soldier. The German trips over a root and falls to the ground, where he quickly finds himself surrounded by a swarm of angry ants. Kyle stands over him and says, "Sorry about this," before flipping the switch and sending electricity coursing through the soldier's body. He collapses to the ground, twitching violently as the ants devour him alive. Once the coast is clear, Kyle flees once more, making his way deeper into the jungle. Suddenly, he spots a narrow opening between two large trees and crawls through, finding himself in a small clearing. In the center of the clearing is a large stone monolith that hums with power. Taking a deep breath, Kyle knows that the time has come to claim the relic for himself. He places his hand on the monolith and closes his eyes, picturing the world as he wants it to be. When he opens his eyes, the monolith has vanished, and he is standing in a vast white chamber filled with swirling mists and strange symbols. Kyle knows that he has entered the ethereal plane, the realm where time and space are at their most chaotic. But he is determined to claim the relic for himself, whatever the cost. As he makes his way through the ethereal plane, Kyle is confronted by a series of challenges. He must navigate through shifting landscapes and battle strange creatures from other dimensions, all while trying to stay focused on his goal. But with every challenge he overcomes, Kyle grows more and more powerful. The ethereal plane is testing him, pushing him to his limits to see if he is worthy of claiming the relic. And as he finally reaches the heart of the ethereal plane, Kyle is rewarded with a vision of the world as it could be, a world where he is a hero and the relic is in his possession. But as he reaches out to claim it, a giant shadowy figure suddenly appears and attacks. The two battle across the ethereal plane, neither one able to gain the upper hand. But as the fight continues, Kyle realizes that he is growing weaker. The ethereal plane is draining his power, and soon he will not be able to hold on much longer. In a last-ditch effort, Kyle uses every ounce of strength he has left to deliver a final blow, banishing the creature back into the shadows from whence it came. Panting heavily, Kyle staggers forward and claims the relic, feeling its power surge through his veins. At that moment, the ethereal plane begins to collapse around him, and Kyle knows that he must leave if he wants to survive. He races towards the exit, desperately trying to make it out in time. But as the exit recedes into the distance, Kyle feels the full force of the ethereal plane's collapse crashing down around him, threatening to crush him in its final moments. Struggling to stay conscious, Kyle manages to crawl through the final opening and collapses to the ground on the other side, clutching the relic tightly to his chest. Waking up slowly, Kyle finds himself lying on a beach in England. Shaking off the last of the ethereal plane's effects, he looks around to make sure no one had followed him through the portal. When he is sure he is alone, Kyle stands up and dusts himself off. He takes a moment to appreciate the beautiful scenery before him and smiles, knowing that he had successfully claimed the relic. He turns and starts walking away from the beach, eager to start the next chapter of his life. As he walks, the camera pans away, leaving Kyle and the relic behind. Suddenly, the relic begins to glow brightly, and Kyle looks down at it in surprise. Before he can react, the glow engulfs him completely, and the ground beneath him shakes violently. Gasping in surprise, Kyle looks up just in time to see the plane that had brought him to England suddenly crash to the ground in a fiery ball of metal. As the flames engulf the wreckage, Kyle watches in horror as the pilot's lifeless body is thrown clear of the plane and lands on the beach below. With a sinking heart, Kyle realizes that the relic's power is unstable and dangerous. If he doesn't find a way to control it, it could destroy everything he loves. But before he can dwell on his failure, the ground beneath him gives way, and he plummets to the ground. With a look of pure terror on his face, he lets out a final scream as he disappears from sight. And that's the end of the movie. Maybe we'll continue the story in another video. Who knows? All I know is that Kyle just got sent back in time and is probably die on impact with the ground. Oh, damn it.